Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Good Roads Podcast. I am Jared LeMay, and it has been a long time since we've been able to record an episode, mainly because of the 2022 Good Roads Conference, which occupied a lot of my time, and especially that of the man who planned it all, sitting across from me, Mr. Thomas Barakat. Are you glad to be off that crazy train there, Thomas? At least for a couple more months when planning begins again?
I was going to say, Jared, we're pretty much, we've already met for 2023 already, so it was very short-lived break there. But yeah, definitely glad to be past it in the sense that it's nice to see it come to fruition this year, especially with all the ups and downs of COVID and Omicron and moving the conference from February to April. It was nice to kind of see it and see everybody back in person, and very excited for next year and the potential that not having a conference disrupted by a pandemic for the first time in a few years, with all that brings.
Well, I mean, for everything that went on, I think we put on a damn good conference.
We might be a bit biased, but I agree.
Well, we'll try not to be biased today. But I mean, for everything that went on, we had a fantastic lineup of people who were there, just from guests. And I know people have seen him on the podcast. We had Chuck Marone, Bruce Katz. Cadmus DeLorme was a fantastic session. And we're going to be putting these online soon. So definitely check them out, everybody, because they are honestly terrific sessions. And on top of that, we had a lot of political guests.
That's right.
Which will lead into...
Nice segue for today.
Yeah, nice segue for today. And as a segue for today, you've hopped out of the proverbial frying pan, which was conference, and into the fire, which is provincial elections, which will be our topic for today. But before we get into that, I want to remind everybody that today's episode is sponsored by the Good Roads Gravel Roads Workshop, which is going to be taking place in October. Gravel roads, they account for approximately 1/3 of Ontario's municipal road network and are vital transportation solutions for small and medium-sized municipalities. Gravel roads require a considerable amount of engineering knowledge to properly design and maintain. So join us for a day dedicated to both the state of practice and the state of the art, focusing on key areas that can be used to ensure long-term performance and cost effectiveness. This event taking place October 20th at Mississauga Grand, and for details, head over to ogra.org. All right. So 4 years into our rearview mirror and a couple of once-in-a-lifetime events over the course of those 4 years, and we're back to provincial elections. So much as we did with the federal elections, we're going to be discussing the platforms and the positions for the major parties and how they impact the municipalities.
Sure.
It's going to be a little bit difficult to include the Green parties with this, Thomas, as they literally dropped their platform this morning.
That's right.
Probably about, 20 minutes before we started recording?
That's right. Although they full credit to them, they did make some of their announcements at our conference, and they did have a couple of backgrounders specifically to transportation and community building on their website, which we were able to reference. But if we do skip out something that was not there and it was in the full budget, we do apologize to the Green Party for that.
Yeah, we're not trying to play favorites here. We're just trying to get everybody's views in and educate the viewers and everybody else about what's going on. So why don't we dive into that? Where do we want to start? There is a lot to look into. Everybody has a lot. Unlike the federal election, there's a lot more for municipalities, specifically for Ontario in this one. So what, as the resident policy, I hate using the word guru, but where do you want to start? What do people need to know?
Well, I'll start with this, Jared. So I encourage everyone to come visit our website to kind of check out some of the priorities, and I'll start off by speaking to that first. We, based on conversations that we've had with our members over the past year or so, we have, been meeting with provincial officials from all parties to kind of have these conversations about the issues. And we've been talking specifically in terms of solutions, but I wanted to outline kind of 5 big priorities that we had that I guess a lot of these issues kind of fall under. But even before that, I just want to preface that by saying most of these issues, Jared, most of these come from municipal fiscal sustainability issues. The fact that municipalities in Ontario do not have the proper taxation tools or funding tools, whatever you want to call it. And we're not even talking about raising taxes, but just with what municipalities are in charge of, the services that they provide, they're just not set up to have all those responsibilities with the revenue that they have. So they're very much at the whim of the other levels of government. That has not really changed over the past couple of years.
It's been something we've been advocating for as well, right?
We have been advocating, as have a bunch of other municipal associations. But so unfortunately, a lot of the issues that we have today stem from that. And it doesn't look like there's going to be any, massive changes to that. But I wanted to outline the 5 priorities which I think come out of that. So one is sustainable infrastructure funding. Municipalities own, I think it's 60% of all the infrastructure, and they only get 8% of revenue from taxation. So that's one. Safe public infrastructure, it's almost kind of stems from that. A lot of the time, making your infrastructure safer requires investments in infrastructure and redesigning roads and bridges and all that sort of thing. That's another thing. Adapting to a changing climate. Again, it's another step on that. Climate change adaptation. This is going to be probably the biggest issue over the next decade or so.
Right.
We've seen all these floods and whatnot, and extreme heat, extreme rain. We have to adapt our infrastructure to that. Again, municipalities don't have the fiscal capacity to do that. Moving on to priority number 4, something that's that's even taking more money away from them is these skyrocketing insurance premiums. So if you're a municipality and you're already cash strapped, and then you have rates that are just astronomically increasing, which we've talked about on this podcast in the past. Which Jared, if you want, you can link that in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so that's another thing we're looking for, our as a priority. And then priority number 5 is just we need a trusted partner for the future. So we're looking for someone who can kind of help the municipal sector, municipal transportation and infrastructure sector, with all these issues going forward, and to be a trusted partner. So those are the 5 priorities that we have outlined. If you want to hear more about them or read more about them, check out our website. We have a PDF you can download if you want to do that.
I'll link that in the description below in the YouTube video, the show notes on Apple, Spotify, Google, all that good stuff.
Perfect. Yeah. So,
and if you go to Goodroad or ogra.ca or ogra.org,
yes,
we're not there yet.
Yes, we're close, getting close, but we'll save that for a future episode.
Yeah.
So that's how kind of we've kind of structured what we're looking at in terms of the issues for this year's election. And I just want to also just add, like I mentioned before, we have met with the parties. We've met with, over the past few months, we've also met with party leaders, ministers. We've had great conversations with staff as well, both on the public servant side and the political side. So it's what you're seeing here, what you're going to be hearing here is almost like a year's worth of work. Presented in a way. So, Jared, why don't we start off by, I guess I wanted to kind of talk about these, these issues based on these, through these priorities, through the lenses of these priorities. Why don't we go through? Why don't we start with the provincial budget, which serves pretty much as the PC party platform, because there is no formal platform that they've released this time around.
We'll look at that starting off in the sustainable infrastructure funding.
Yeah. Why don't we do that? So So this is what I'll do. I'll just say that this was actually first announced in the fall economic statement back in November, I believe it was. They announced they were doubling OSIF, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. So it's up to about $2 billion over, was it 4 years or 5 years? One of the two. But that's a pretty. Doubling OSIF is huge. OSIF is pretty stable funding, and to have it kind of laid out for. It is for 5 years. So to have it kind of more stable for those 5 years, that's a huge commitment and a huge win from the Minister of Infrastructure, Kinga Surma, and the government. And I think everybody from smaller municipalities that received this funding, we're very happy to hear that. Yeah.
So with the Conservative government promising that, is there anything else from any of the other parties in terms of OSIF?
So there weren't any specific mentions to OSIF that I saw in the other platforms, except there were references to infrastructure and community infrastructure. But so there's no. I don't think anyone's going to come out and say we're gonna scrap the doubling of OSIF. That would probably be very a bad political move if I could inform that. No, there was nothing specifically regarding OSIF in the other platforms that I saw.
And as I went through the platforms, I did notice mentions of community infrastructure funding here and there, nothing specific related to OSIF. But
yeah, so although I will say that the Liberal Party, the Ontario Liberal Party, they wanted to set up something called a rural development fund, which builds and repairs crucial community rural infrastructure like libraries, arenas, and other community spaces. So, and they also want to use it to encourage co-location of schools and community services. That's on page 79 of the Liberal platform. Right. So that's definitely a nod to that sort of thing. It doesn't include, unfortunately, what we like to talk about, which is roads or bridges and whatnot. But infrastructure, if you can use money to build other infrastructure, there's money left over, hopefully, to build the ones that our members that are near and dear to their heart. So.
Well, in terms of roads and bridges, since you mentioned it, this is a nod to the northern municipalities and a nod to our good friend Mark Wilson. The Liberal Party did mention they want to implement that 2+1 roads.
Jared, you're jumping ahead. That's going to be in. Come on, that's safe public infrastructure.
Wow, that
was
one more
down
the line.
That was the next one.
Okay,
but I mean, hey, look, if you want, we can. I mean, why don't we just hold that thought very quickly?
Right, we'll put a pin in that for now.
Put a pin in that for now. Yeah, and just talk. Yeah, let's talk infrastructure funding first, sustainable infrastructure funding. Because specifically OSIF, that was the only thing that we saw. But this kind of goes into, and I think this is the best kind of area to have this kind of conversation. You can't talk about sustainable infrastructure without talking about planning and development, because the way that our communities are physically built determines if they're financially sustainable. Right. So we talked to Chuck Marone. Everyone that came to our conference heard from Chuck Marone. He's talking about we gotta stop sprawl. We gotta stop building useless infrastructure projects that Stroads, that sort of thing, and we have to kind of invest in more so I want to say complete communities, but we have to kind of densify what we already had. That doesn't mean a 50-story tower on each corner of our quote unquote stable neighborhoods, and that's not what we're talking about. But I'm going to give us an honorable mention here to the Green Party, who they have pledged to freeze urban boundaries and accommodate all growth within all already built up areas. So the Liberals have promised to kind of stop it or slow it down. Same with the NDP. They want to hold the line on it, I think was how the NDP characterized it. And the Liberals had also indicated that they wanted to kind of put the incentives back to kind of densify existing neighborhoods already.
And I think we discussed that in our 413 episode about how we can use existing areas, existing land, existing communities, and build off of that.
Exactly. And it's funny, we're not really like a planning and development organization, but you can't talk about sustainable infrastructure without talking about these sorts of things.
Yeah.
So, I agree. We've had a conversation with Charles Marone about this. We have a conversation about the 413 on this, but we have to build our communities in a way that are sustainable for infrastructure so that they're financially sustainable. Right. Unfortunately, this is something that the current government, they don't seem to have an issue with sprawl. They have committed to transit-oriented communities, which I think is also great. That's really good.
And as I went through their platform, there's a lot of great. Well, actually, everybody's platform has a lot of awesome push for transit. And again, going back to that 413 episode, we talked a lot about to make these complete communities, you need transit. You need, especially if you want to Southern Ontario being so spread out, but everything sort of being in one central location.
And so we saw in the budget that the Conservatives pledged $61.6 billion over 10 years for public transportation, public transit, which is, that's huge. Like we're seeing subways being built, we're seeing LRTs being built, and that sort of thing. And we can't. Those are tough projects that take a long time to build, and unfortunately, there's a lot of cost overruns associated. Right. So see that commitment there is it's nice to have that with the government, the current government, and then the other parties have also pledged to kind of boost transit. And we were talking about sustainable infrastructure, and it's hard to talk about that without talking about transit infrastructure, but also transit service. And I did want to kind of hold off on the some of this for the final part, which is about trusted partner. But I mean, it just seems like the logical thing is, restoring provincial funding for municipal public transit. This is one of the NDP promises. So they want to restore that back to 50% of net operating costs. So that it has been historically a lot lower than that. I think maybe in the 90s it was higher, or maybe around 50%.
Right.
But again, I'm going to give full credit where credit is due. The Conservatives have done a very good job supporting municipalities on the transit front through the budget shortcomings that were a result of the pandemic. So they had very much helped municipalities with that. The NDP is promising 50% of funding, like just permanently, which I think is great. And the Liberals are promising Buck a Ride, which I absolutely
That was
love
only for
that
6
idea.
months, though, I believe is in there.
It was for 2 years.
2 years, sorry.
I
knew it was a timed thing.
Right, but they also wanted to support municipality. They wanted to make up the budget shortfalls by doing that.
Right.
I think they pledged, was it $2 billion? I think is what they had pledged for that. So again, over 2 years. I think it's over 2 years. But yeah. So but when you're looking at a platform, you have to look at the intent as well. So I'm seeing the intention here is they want to be a partner on municipal transit.
Right.
And so that pledge, the Buck a Ride, is not just for GO, it's for Oakville Transit, Mississauga Transit, like all the local transit.
And I mean, that was in a lot of the platforms as well, was to connect these communities. I mean, I know...
Fair integration.
Yeah, exactly. There are certain communities now where you get off a bus and you got to pay for another ticket for a train.
Right.
And I used to live in Oshawa, the Durham area, and they had a fantastic system where GO, at the time, Durham Region Transit was broken up into Pickering, Ajax, Oshawa.
Right.
But they all connected, and one ticket for Oshawa was good for like a transfer in Ajax or the GO bus or something like that. And to spread that out throughout the GTA, the Golden Horseshoe area, will help a lot of people who have to pay double fares. Yeah, exactly. And the more we can convince, the easier you can make like a ride on transit to get from point A to point B, that the more appealing it is to leave the car at home. Right. And then the less congestion you have, the less need there is for highways. And also the cost is a big thing. Well, and that's the thing too. When I lived in Oshawa and worked in Mississauga, it was just too cost prohibitive and time prohibitive for me to take the GO. I would have to take 2 GOs and 2 buses to get to my work over 4 hours. Right. Which I mean, it's not sustainable to do that. No, I was in like a blizzard driving home and it took me 4 hours. And that's just once. Imagine every day on the bus, the train, and I mean, once you missed your train, there's another half hour. Yeah. Yeah, like not every trip is like it makes sense. It's not logical at this point, but the more we can kind of work towards, like lots of transit, like this and higher service levels. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, there are a couple of the platforms are talking about increasing times between these, like between buses and trains and everything like that. So you mean frequency? Frequency. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. You don't want to increase the time. You want to decrease the time. Yeah. Yes. But decrease or increase frequency. People can get where they're going quicker. And then what is it? The PCs and the Liberals, and I believe even the the NDP had the all-day GO from Kitchener-Waterloo to Toronto. They're looking into. That's an important GO expansion for the Liberals. PCs are talking about GO expansion to Bowmanville. They're exploring London, Golden Horseshoe, and Southwestern Ontario as well. Right. So everybody's looking into or promising to do something for transit. Yeah, and I'll throw in here something else that I saw on page 79 of the Liberal platform. They actually pledged to improve transportation options by making community transportation grants permanent for small and rural communities. So those grants help smaller transit systems in some of these rural communities. Some of them are it could be like on-demand transit, that sort of thing. I believe this one was a pilot for a few years, and it keeps getting extended because it seems to be doing such a good job. And so it's nice to see that pledge to make it permanent there in the Liberal platform. So before we it was on page 64, I believe. Before we jump off transit, the Liberals were talking about electrification of transit as well on page 64. of their
right. Yep.
which I think is a fantastic idea.
Yep. And yep.
If you're, and I mean, I know we'll get into climate change and everything later on, but as an electric car user,
I know you're going to bring it up.
I mean, it's a fantastic vehicle and a great service to use. But I mean, if they can electrify this and take the onus off
right.
Fossil fuel specifically for this, that's a huge chunk. Well, a good chunk out of emissions.
So Metrolinx, I think they do have a plan to do that. I don't know if the Liberals are planning to speed it up, but the Greens have pledged this. The current government, and like I said, I know that's the long-term plan for Metrolinx. They're doing a lot of work right now to kind of lead up to it because it takes time. You have to kind of, they're trying to implement regional express rail,
right.
which is more frequent, more stops, but and also electrified. So I think a lot of the parties are pledging that. I don't remember if I saw that in the electrification in the NDP one, but I feel like it's something that they would support.
I remember seeing it somewhere else, and I didn't put it in my notes which one it was, but NDP sounds right, but I'm not gonna. Don't quote me on that one.
Okay.
But yeah, with electrification comes an increase in the need for that power source, which
right.
I mean, all parties need to look at, and it's not really our place to say.
Right.
It's not in our mandate, but
right.
we have talked about energy use
mm-hmm.
and where it comes from in Canada,
right,
and
right.
Ontario specifically.
Right. And so I want to but I know we jumped ahead a little bit. I want to go back to, I had mentioned that the Liberals had wanted to make the community transportation grant permanent. On that note, the NDP pledged to fill the gap left behind by Greyhound kind of exiting, because inter-community transit is very important, and there's a lot of places where those options are just very lacking. So the NDP has pledged to work with municipal and industry partners to develop an inter-community transportation strategy to better connect communities across Ontario. That's page 80 in the NDP platform. So I like to see that. That's, people in the north and in other rural areas, they need options that don't involve driving all the time. They have to get to medical appointments in different towns, different cities. Having those options, especially for those who can't drive or can't afford to drive,
right.
It's an equity issue as well. So it is very nice to see that in there. And then just lastly on this, because we're talking about kind of transit and inter-community and rural, and we should talk about northern transit. The current government wants to, so the PCs have pledged, and they've already kind of started the business case to bring back the Ontario Northlander, the actual train, from Toronto to Cochrane? Timmins. Why am I, no, it was Timmins. Then the NDP wants to restore it and connect it with the Polar Express in Cochrane. That's what the NDP. So they want to even extend it further. So that's it is nice to see that. We for us, it's not really a municipal thing, but it helps our municipal members up there so much to have that option. And
right.
It's economic development, it's equity, it's getting to and from different places. You just need that there. And a lot of this infrastructure or these services are not, like, in all honesty, they might not be profitable, but this is where you need to have a government partner to kind of come in, because it's important for those communities to have that.
And I mean, sometimes it's not about profit, but I mean,
but a private company is going to come in, and that's why we need the government partner.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's where the government comes in to help with it. I mean, it's not about profits right now; it's about northern communities, and as we build up those communities, they will eventually become profitable.
Exactly.
We just need that little bridge to that.
Exactly.
Most of the parties, actually, I was watching the northern debates a couple of days ago, and I believe all of the parties were on board with bringing back the Northlander. Del Duca got a little bit of fluff or flack from the other parties for being there when I don't think he was actually a cabinet minister when the Northlander was canceled, but he came on afterwards, right?
Yeah, so that was it was canceled under the McGuinty government,
right.
And I believe Stephen Del Duca was elected in 20.
Either way, he came in a couple of years afterwards, but that's still something hanging over his government's head.
Yeah, and whether it's fair or not is another conversation. But
the fact is they want to bring it back. All parties want to bring it back. It's great for Northern Ontario. It's great for municipalities. It's great for the people. And
yeah, exactly. So, and what else can we say about? I think that.
In terms of public transit, or
so why don't why don't we move on to actually, hold on, no, one last thing on this. So the Liberals, and I don't know why I didn't get the page number on this, but they wanted to review municipal fiscal sustainability and the potential to upload responsibility of more critical infrastructure like bridges and roads to the province. So that's a pretty big, it's weird. I just kind of have it written down, scribbled down there at the bottom, but that's a huge, I don't there's no details, so I guess I don't know how huge it is, but in the past we saw a lot of downloading from, in the 90s in the Harris government. And like we mentioned, municipalities have the least ability to kind of pay for infrastructure.
Right.
So
exactly.
if we're talking about uploading, uploading would be, that would be huge. And we're talking, bridges and roads. We calculated a $34.7 billion infrastructure deficit municipal in Ontario alone, just for roads, bridges, and culverts. So if this is a creative way to, I wouldn't even say creative, but it's a logical, it's a common sense ways to take that away from the municipalities and give it to the province.
And with that deficit, Dr. James Smith of Good Roads is recalculating for this year.
Yes, once the asset management plans are updated, which the deadline is July 1st, I believe.
Right. So we'll see in a little bit more detail if it's gotten any worse during the pandemic or where we're standing, right?
Yeah. So stay tuned for that. And maybe that's a future show we'll have here, Joe. We'll have Dr. James on. We'll see about that.
There we go.
So I just wanted to mention that because that's a pretty. When you talk about issues, you have to talk about solutions,
right?
And the solution that we proposed was for that is a municipal bridge bundling pilot project, and we've been kind of hammering that with all the parties. We've seen that in other jurisdictions. We can see savings of 13 to 20% just by switching up how we do that.
Right.
If we can do more with less and not cut anything, that's to me is common sense. So that was our kind of proposed solution for one of the solutions for municipal for sustainable municipal funding or for infrastructure, I should say, and just in general. Unfortunately, I don't see a commitment here. Now, Stephen Del Duca at our conference announced that they would be supporting that. I don't see it like specifically outlined in the platform, but
we have him on video saying it.
Oh, that's right. Yes, right. So
we're going to hold him to it.
Yeah. So if he gets elected as premier, we'll show up to the meeting with just a recording of him saying that, and we'll hold his feet to the fire on it.
There we go.
And I did tell him that we would hold his feet to the fire on it. So if he was elected, But yeah, so anyways, I think that's enough for our first priority. Why don't we move on to
public infrastructure,
to safe public, safe use, right? Safe public infrastructure.
Safe public infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay. You started talking about the 2+1s. Why don't you start off with that, Jared?
All right. So the provincial Conservatives, they've started the pilot project with our good friend Mark Wilson about 2+1 roads up in Timiskaming Shores, that area.
Yeah, Highway 11 north of North Bay. They have. I don't think they've finalized the two sites that they had narrowed it down. But from what we understand, they're fully committed to it.
Right.
So kudos to Minister Mulrooney and her team for. That's a very that's like a really good example of a safe systems approach to transportation, and I know that's going to lead to the next thing, so I'm just going to let you go on with the 2+1.
Yeah, so they've are they just doing the test right now, or are they fully committed to it?
Well, it's going to be a pilot. They're going to start off with that one, and I think if they once they undoubtedly see the results, I don't see why they wouldn't expand it to other areas.
Right, and again, the Liberals in their platform, page 79, they're 100% for implementing 2+1 roads. The NDP, I didn't see anything specific about 2+1 roads,
either.
Highway 11 and 17 reclassification.
That's another one. Let's move to that in a sec.
All right.
Yeah.
And again, the Green Party, I'm going to have to leave that for you because...
Yeah. So unfortunately, because in the original transportation brief that they had on their website, which was not part of the full platform, I didn't see any reference to that. But the Greens make, and again, maybe this is a segue because we've gone kind of exhausted this. They have committed, they have committed to Vision Zero, specifically outlined in their platform. Again, special mention to Mike Schreiner and the Greens for that. They're not beating around the bush. They want to implement Vision Zero. And that's on, page 39 of the platform. I just, I had to control F it there. Implement Vision Zero to prioritize road safety for pedestrians and cyclists. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. That's the holy grail of road safety, of an approach to road safety. And
right.
we've been talking to all parties about this for the past few years, probably since 2017 or so. This is the way forward for getting to zero on serious injuries and fatalities on our roads. They want to do that. The Greens want to do that. They also want to create a fund for municipalities to build protected bike lanes while preserving safety and curb access for seniors and people with disabilities. So I mean, they've got a lot of really good stuff in here, good things in here.
Right. And that's fantastic. That's been our ask for a long time. Advocacy days have been
yes,
specifically that.
Yep. And they specifically actually say redesign roads to reduce motorist speed in areas that are particularly dangerous to pedestrians and cyclists, and eliminate hazards such as slip lanes. So I feel like even though it's 2+1 isn't in this, I feel like the Green Party would be very supportive of that because the 2+1 is a Vision Zero or a safe systems approach to road safety. So not in there, but I'm going to assume that if you're talking about Vision Zero and you explicitly state it like they have in the Green Party platform, then I don't want to put words in Mike Schreiner's mouth, but I assume he'd be cool with it.
But to move on from that, the Liberal Party also has a little bit of Vision Zero on their platform. I noticed specifically page 66 of the PDF, make it more affordable and safer to bike, walk, and drive, which includes a $500 rebate for e-bikes, expanding cycling lanes and trails, work to eliminate road fatalities and serious injuries, and make it cheaper to install winter tires.
Yes. So again, this is something Stephen Del Duca at our conference said he was going to be fully supportive of. It doesn't specifically say Vision Zero, but like you said, it says make it safer to get for pedestrians and cyclists to get around, and set a goal to achieve zero fatalities or serious road injuries.
It's elements of
that is exactly what it is. And then just to kind of build on, they say they'll do this by supporting common sense road designs that improve safety and reduce collisions, and will increase penalties for driving offenses that result in fatalities or serious injuries. So that's Vision Zero without the name Vision Zero.
Yeah.
So that's a Vision Zero pledge. So 2 of the 4 parties pledging to Vision Zero. Hey, I think that's part of the work we've done, but it's also the work other great road safety organizations have been kind of pushing forward.
We've had excellent conversations with the NDP and Conservative government about this. I didn't see, maybe you did specifically in their platforms.
So not specifically in the platforms, but the NDP has put, like in the past session, I guess, of the legislature, they had put together a series of vulnerable road user bills and road safety bills. So for me, I was a little bit surprised that it wasn't specifically referenced, just because of how active they were on that file throughout the past 4 years. But it's again not in the platform itself. And the Conservatives, they passed the Moms Act when they were last spring, about a year ago. And that combated things like stunt driving and all that. So that's, again, great first step, but we're looking for something that's going to be taking us to the next level in terms of that. And it's rethinking our how we see our roads and our transportation network in general. So again, I'll say on this, the Liberals and the Greens have done they stand out on this.
Right. They've put it specifically in there so that people can see it.
Right. Now, but on this, and you kind of alluded to this a bit before, so there are different, there's different I guess, aspects to road safety. One is like Vision Zero and that, and then and design and all that. But yeah, the next one is it's maintenance, like winter maintenance and all and all that sort of thing. So you meant I'll let you say it because you had kind of.
Well, I mean, the big one I noticed was the NDP talking about bringing winter maintenance back in-house.
Yeah.
Instead of, that was page 82 of their PDF.
Yes, yeah, I saw that on page 80, but maybe, yeah, anyway.
Well, yeah, they're page 80, page 82 of the PDF.
Yeah. We don't have to have a debate about the page.
But yeah, they said it's a commitment to end bad contracts with private companies. And so, I mean, that's... I don't even know how I feel about that. Is that a burden on municipalities to have to pick that back up again? Or
so I don't know if this is. So this is the thing. I don't know if this is this is probably for for provincial highway,
right?
Not municipal.
Okay.
So I assumed that I didn't see a mention to municipal.
Well, I mean, it's just a little paragraph too. It's not
right. So we don't know the full details, but I would assume that doesn't affect municipalities. But what the province does, municipalities look up to the province for leadership on this sort of thing. So if there's a push to kind of bring these services back in house, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I guess from the NDP as well as the classification of Highway 11 and 17 as Class 1s. Yeah,
so this is the thing. I want to give an honorable mention to the NDP for this, especially MPP Guy Bourgoin, because he actually had introduced a bill, I think in 2018 or was it 2019, early on in the past session of the legislature. And unfortunately, it did not pass. But this is where I had first seen this mentioned. They tried to bring it back again after the legislature was prorogued last year, or at the end of last summer. Didn't get the movement, unfortunately. So it is there. It is in the NDP platform, and I think that's a very they need that. And it's there. So the Liberals have also joined in on that. So they have mentioned it in their platform, designating highways 11 and 17 as Class 1 highways, so they're plowed more often. This essentially just gives them the same kind of level of service or of maintenance that we have here in Southern Ontario on 400 series highways. And anyone that's driven on highways 11 and 17 or is from the north just can tell you how important these highways are to those northern municipalities.
Right.
So again, this is not specifically a municipal issue, but it's so important. These roads are so important to those communities that we have to mention it.
So mentioning that, the conservatives mentioned Highway 11 and 17 increasing them from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. Would that bring them up to Class 1 highways then?
Well, I think Class 1 in the sense that, just in terms of, so actually you raise a good point. Right now, I think how a Class 1 highway is measured, I don't know if it's lanes or if it's on the frequency, the number of cars, like vehicles per hour, that sort of thing. And this is where I'd have to go back. But in Guy Bourgoin's original bill, he had wanted to kind of change the way how you change something classified as Class 1.
All right.
So I don't know if that's what that was alluding to, but the parties just want to change it to Class 1. So I don't know how they're going to get there, whether it's by more lanes or whatever. But more lanes, that just be like a pledge to kind of make, I don't want to say safer, but to kind of increase flow of these highways, because we know that if there's a big accident, especially in the winter, it shuts down the whole highway. You literally can't get through Northern Ontario without being backed up for 3 or 4 hours sometimes.
Right.
So, hey, we're very much supportive here of our northern friends and them having the same access to infrastructure and transportation options as we do down here in the south. So.
And I mean, the Liberals in their platform, page 79. I'm all messed up on pages now because they.
Their
PDFs and the page numbers are different in some of them, but they also committed to making 4 lanes of 11 and 17 through Thunder Bay by 2025.
Okay. Yeah. So you know what? It's funny. I actually kind of ignored the pledges to expand provincial highways because it doesn't really. The way I see it is that's just it does affect, but it doesn't directly affect. So if you probably had, there was a whole list of other highways that they were going to.
Yeah, I didn't mention them all.
I know. But
69, 17.
Yeah. And then there was also a bunch of other commitments, I think, in all the other platforms as well about expanding highways. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. I don't want to get into a discussion too much about that, in all honesty. But it is good to see the level of service, like the pledge to increase the level of service to Class 1 level for winter maintenance. And I think the fact that we're seeing that from a lot of the parties here is a good it's a good thing.
Hopefully, what they mean by expanding or widening, it allows them to move up to a Class 1 for those levels of service for the people in the north, because driving up there is miserable sometimes. I've been through the north in the summer, and it's worrisome at the best of times, but I can only imagine in the winter.
Yeah, I know. I agree, Jared. So we touched on the 2+1. We touched on winter maintenance. What else was? Oh, we touched on Vision Zero and safe systems and the commitments there. Was there anything else that we wanted to mention here in terms of safe use of public assets? I think I mentioned it already with the Green Party. They had pledged a lot on that front. I think we talked about that already. But I think that was it for that section for that priority.
Well, let's move on to adapting to changing climate.
Sure.
And if we remember anything at the end, we can just circle back and touch on anything we might have forgotten.
Sure, yeah.
So climate change.
Why don't I just preface that with the FAO, the Financial Accountability Office of Ontario, like earlier this year, they released its Costing Climate Change Impacts to Public Infrastructure report. And this essentially assessed the financial impact of 3 climate hazards: extreme rainfall, extreme heat, and freeze-thaw cycles on public buildings in Ontario. And essentially, they had predicted that these 3 hazards will add nearly $6 billion to the cost of maintaining public buildings and facilities in a state of good repair just between now and the end of the decade. So just until 2030, that's $6 billion. And then they had also added a bunch of other numbers in there, or scenarios, I should say. It'll be $66 billion by the end of the century, or $800 million per year on average. So we're going back to municipal fiscal sustainability here and all that. To be able to adapt your infrastructure and your buildings to for this change in climate, there needs to be significant commitment from other levels of government. And look, other infrastructure programs that exist, they I don't want to say they prioritize it, but they do mention it, that it's for a changing future and climate and that and blah 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 blah. But what we need, I think, at this point is a wholesale commitment to it, because these once in 100-year storms, they happen once every decade now, once every 5 years, once every, even depending, it could be 2 years in a row. I remember a couple of years back, in Toronto, just after heavy rain, it's just seeing pictures of streetcars flooded and
the DVP
trains
flooded.
Yeah, the DVP and
bridges underwe're
underwater.
And I mean, if you think about this year in Oakville, it was 2 weeks ago. We're in May right now. 2 weeks ago, and it was snowing.
Yeah, it's well, that's just spring in Canada, Jerry.
It seems to follow the conference. Like literally the day after conference, it snows.
We get some snow.
I don't care. I don't care when the conference is. It could be in the middle of July and it'll snow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but we're looking to see if parties will commit to that. What was I going to start with here? So, I mean, I think the logical to start this is the Green Party, because Mike Schreiner came to our conference, and actually this is where he announced it first, was he wanted to create a $2 billion per year climate change adaptation fund to support municipalities with green and resilient infrastructure. That is a huge commitment on the part of the Greens, and that's what municipalities need. That's a sort of level. That's the level of I guess the scale. We need this kind of ambitious investment in climate change adaptation. So that's in a league of its own. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Second one I saw was the Liberals. So they had also pledged that, but they were pledging $250 million a year. So $2 billion, $250 million. Okay, it's a big difference, but it's there. And so I'm glad to see that it was mentioned. I don't think anyone's going to out-green the greens on that. So in all honesty, so I think that's, it had to kind of be there at that level. Did you see any in any of the other platforms, Jared? I
not specifically for that, no.
Yeah, not specifically. I didn't see it. So again, honorable mention there to the Greens and also the Liberals for bringing that in. But it's only an issue that's going to continue to get more important. And we prioritize asset management here at Good Roads.
Right.
In the municipal asset management regulation, it actually it says that municipalities have to have like a strategic plan to be able to kind of address this, kind of in their plan and going forward, that sort of thing. Municipalities, most of the time they know what has to be done, but they just can't afford to do it. And
exactly.
So having a dedicated fund just for that, I think is, it's really important.
Right.
So let's see what happens, and let's hopefully, we can bring emissions down, and these scenarios that were outlined by the financial accountability officer, hopefully we're on the low end of it, not the high end, because essentially the higher it is, the more it's going to cost us in the long run.
Exactly. Speaking of emissions, I'm going to go on a little bit of a walk here, so stay with me.
Oh, no. Uh-oh. Oh, God.
One of the things I noticed through a lot of the platforms is they're big on vehicle electrification.
Yep, I knew you. Yeah, okay.
And to do that, they want to build batteries in Ontario. Specifically for that, they're talking about developing the Ring of Fire, the Northern Ontario. And again, this goes back to Northern Ontario. Yep. There were some platforms specifically that mentioned building roads up there and sustainable roads and something that the North can connect to the South with. Mm-hmm. To build up the Ring of Fire area to bring in the materials needed for electric batteries and electrification of vehicles. That I think falls perfectly into climate change. And I mean, there are secondary things like the Liberals, I believe, were talking about bringing back EV rebates. But for the most part, we'll touch on that afterwards. But for the most part, the Liberals are talking about EV batteries made and sold in Ontario, developing the Ring of Fire.
Right. And the Conservatives that was mentioned throughout their budget. I mean, that was they
right.
They kudos to them. They kind of moved from let's rip up charging stations or charging at GO stations to we want to be the EV capital of like North America.
Right.
So it's important to kind of give credit where credit due and understanding. Like I think they saw how important this was and they changed their mind on it. So it's good to see that they made big investments in some of the big automakers to retool. In Canada, in Ontario, so to have those, and they partnered with the federal government on a lot of those investments as well.
Right.
So, but you're right. This is all part of a strategy, and I think it's very much mentioned in the budget.
And it crosses many boundaries too. I mean, you've got development of Northern Ontario with the roads to the Ring of Fire. You need decent roads. You can't have half-year roads.
Yeah, and the Indigenous communities.
Communities especially. I mean, it helps build them up, and it helps.
Yeah, it has to be done in consultation
with
them and with buy-in for them, because there is obviously some costs to the community as well, but the costs have to kind of outweigh, or the benefits have to outweigh the costs. Yeah. Sorry.
But I mean, it puts Ontario on the map in terms of EV development, minerals, and growth. Right. Especially if we can develop vehicles and batteries built here.
Right. Exactly.
And I guess just a tertiary thing too, as we saw through the pandemic, the supply chain issues.
Right. Having domestic production on as many things as you can, I think is very important.
So, I mean,
when I say as many things, I mean like in terms of things that are like not national security, but things that are very important.
Right.
What's the word I'm looking for here? I don't know. It's eluding me, but
that's okay.
Like critical infrastructure, critical products too. Like,
right.
And people need cars. The cost of a used car is if you're trying to buy one last year, you're paying more for the used car than you would if you bought it new.
And then the price of gas too. People can't afford to go anywhere. You've got to really ration your driving.
Right.
So, I mean, you get EVs. Gas prices don't really bother me right now.
Yeah, because you're an EV driver.
Well, until the summer, and I got to gas up my lawnmower for $20. But, but I mean, We get that critical infrastructure. That's one of the things I'm happy to see back from the Liberals is they want to put that EV rebate. I mean, it's only $9,500. Well, I shouldn't say
that's 95. So that's $8,500 for the car, $1,000 I think for the station,
right?
Like the charging station, and then that also you can stack that on top of the federal one,
which is another $5.
Which is another $5. So you're looking at like almost 15,000.
Close to. I mean, when I got mine, it was 15 from the provincial, and then 50% for the charging station, which
right. So you're almost back in that.
And even now we've got more electric vehicle manufacturers. I mean, it's not just Tesla, Chevy's. They're Bolts. The 2022 Bolts are.
And Toyota.
I mean, it's hard to get. Hyundai's got the Ioniq. Kia's got something out there. Ford's got the Mustang, and the pickup truck is coming out soon, which is just an incredible vehicle. But you've got so much more choice right now. The problem is we've got to get them in Ontario, and building batteries in Ontario will make it easier to build these vehicles in Ontario, get them to people using them here.
Right. And I agree with that. Did you see anything in the NDP platform about that?
They've got a zero emissions vehicle strategy on page 38. They talk about responsible mining on 44 and developing the Ring of Fire on 45. Of the PDF, not of the.
I hear you.
So they've got strategies on that as well. Again, the Greens, I didn't have a chance to take a look at that this morning, but they're like you said, you don't outgreen the Greens. So I'm sure they have something specific for that.
Well, they want to do a lot, and honestly, I wish I had seen this before, but they just looking at it right now, they want to join other provinces adopting zero emission vehicle standards. They want to be part of the EV revolution. Let's see. They actually want to. So they want to increase demand for new low vehicle incentives up to $10,000 for buying a fully electric vehicle and $1,000 for an e-bike or used electric vehicle. So that's pretty much. I think that's similar to what the Liberals had.
Yeah.
Although there's been. I don't think I saw they mentioned.
500 was the Liberals. That was under their quasi Vision Zero.
Oh, I see.
Plan.
Right. Yeah. And then so the Greens also want to require trucks in urban areas to be 50% zero emission vehicles by 2030 and 100% by 2040.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, and that's doable. I mean, from what I've seen from Ford's truck, it's supposed to be as good or better than a gas powered truck.
Right.
As battery technology grows, I know Toyota just brought out a solid state battery, which essentially the 238%. Of a regular lithium-ion battery, but as this technology grows, it's going to be far beyond gas vehicles. And I mean, the great thing about it is you don't need to worry about maintenance. There's no moving parts, instant torque, all of this great stuff. You just don't have that huge roar. And I mean, it's not like nobody's telling you to get rid of your gas car. You can keep it. It's just going to cost a little bit more to run,
right? And
maintenance. I mean, for the people who like to fix up their cars and everything like that. But I mean, honestly, if you ever get a chance, and I know Kara Clareman talked about this in our EV episode, if you ever get a chance, get out and check out an EV car. Take it for a spin.
Right.
It's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. You'll understand why people.
All right, Joe. I'm gonna have to cut your infomercial here on EVs short because there's a little more ground to cover here.
We're trying to sell these, right? we're trying to get zero emissions in Canada.
Right. Now, if we can develop a partnership with an EV manufacturer who and we get a sale,
Ford,
hint. Come on, we'll gladly talk more about the EVs on the show here, Jared. But I also just wanted to kind of just while we're on this, so it's. Electric vehicles are great, but people always say, what about infrastructure, charging infrastructure? And that's a big thing. The Greens in their platform, they want to increase access to EVs and the charging infrastructure.
Right.
They want to increase the number of fast charging stations on every 400 series highway rest stop.
Right.
By 2023, they want to require all new or resurfaced parking areas, both public and private, to install EV charging. That's pretty huge. They want to provide a tax incentive for businesses to install charging infrastructure. And they want to require existing parking lots and garages, again, both public, private, above or below ground, to install access to EV charging in 25% of spots by 2024, 50% by 2030, and 75% by 2035. And they want to amend the building code so that new homes are EV charging ready.
Awesome.
So that's literally, I barely even had a chance to look at this platform, but this stood out.
Well, and I mean, the big thing about that too is a lot of people, condo owners like yourself, are worried. And I remember you had this question for Kara was, how am I supposed to get it in there? How am I gonna?
Yeah, it's installing it, and it's so like now also like I am on my condo board. I am aware of the kind of the challenges, and even just like it's not even viable for every spot to have a charging station in a building like that,
right? Or
in condos, because the amount of electricity you'd have to have going into the building it's almost impossible.
Yeah, and again, that touches back on energy use and and how we get our energy. I know there were a couple platforms that mentioned getting rid of natural gas plants entirely. Was that the Greens or the Liberals? I can't remember off the top of my head. It wasn't Municipal based, so I just sort of glossed over it. But
no, I think that was I think what you're referencing was there was an IESO study that talked about phasing out. Like how if they're going to phase out natural gas.
Well, I remember one platform specifically saying getting rid of natural gas in favor of more green infrastructure, which
green energy. Yeah.
I
mean, looking at the green platform, and they literally say double Ontario's electricity supply by 2040,
right,
and make Ontario's electricity emission free as quickly as possible in order to electrify transportation.
But I mean, to do that too, like you need a backup. You need. If you're gonna get rid of natural gas, you've got to go with nuclear.
I mean, the Green Party platform says don't build new uranium mines or nuclear plants that add to our huge pile of dangerous nuclear waste. They want to shut down the aged Pickering nuclear plant as scheduled or earlier if continued operation is unsafe.
You see, that worries me though. I mean,
they want to negotiate to buy and or exchange power with Quebec if both power and transmission are available at a reasonable price. I mean, that's another way of doing it.
It's a way of doing it, yeah. I mean, I'll give them that. It's something to look at. I'm
not gonna lie. I'm not focusing on energy because it's
neither am I. I'm saying it's something to think about.
It is something to think about. Yes.
Like you can shut down one form of electricity in favor of another. You've got to make sure it's sustainable because I know California did that in favor of renewables, and they were rolling blackouts for an entire summer.
True.
And then they got battery infrastructure to back that up, and it couldn't handle the load and caught fire.
I see.
So, I mean, this is not municipal. We'll move on from that, but it's when you're looking at these different aspects of platforms, you got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, so like the Liberal platform, just because now you've got me talking about it, I don't really, whatever. But I do see a reference in there to increase the use of renewable natural gas, which is what we've talked about. On this show before. And they want to cut carbon and methane pollution by more than 50%. And I know we talked about. Back when we had Joey Seipels on, we talked about
from Enbridge,
and we talked about how methane was actually even worse than carbon.
And then with CAP in our last episode, they mentioned RNG.
Yeah, so the Liberals do mention that. Again, I wasn't looking for this, but now you got me. So now I feel like I have to look at the NDP one as well. I do see it. Yeah, expand clean renewable energy. They want to expand hydro capacity, increase affordable renewables, including wind and solar. And improve grid scale storage and make major grid interconnections with Quebec and Manitoba.
Why not do everything, right?
And that's so I think increasing those connections with our neighbors that have Quebec has clean hydro, like they sell it to New York, for so cheap,
right? Exactly.
So I think that's So,
but I mean, it's like Shannon said in the last episode: is you don't cut off one form of fuel for another. Why not use both? Why not use all?
Well, I think, that's a whole other conversation.
You can take it down, but getting rid of it entirely is...
I don't think anyone says, not all at once.
Yeah, not all at once. Yeah. That's a good way to phrase it.
Yeah. It's a transition, right?
But is there anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of climate?
Of climate? No. Okay. I was more so trying to focus on the infrastructure part of it. But these conversations or these types of things they kind of go hand in hand.
So to pivot to the climate change, or from the climate change into our next priority. Discussing with
Just your Amtrak.
Just your Amtrak. Thank you.
Ramchuck.
Yes, your Amtrak.
I said truck.
I know.
I'm thinking about trucks. She'd be very disappointed to hear you say
I know that. Yeah. I'm sorry, Jess. Speaking with her about insurance rates, that goes hand in hand with climate change as well, because as she was saying,
that's an upward pressure on insurance premiums. So, that is, it's funny. I was actually figuring. I was almost debating with myself here, or thinking about how best to structure these priorities. And I had originally had climate change adaptation underneath skyrocketing insurance premiums because it is such a big factor. And she mentioned that herself when we can reference that show in the notes or whatever if you want to go back to that episode. But
yeah,
that's one of the big things. Skyrocketing insurance premiums. So I remember she mentioned climate change and cybersecurity, and then the long tail nature of lawsuits against municipalities.
Right.
And then, of course, her favorite joint and several liability. So I was going to say, this conversation on this priority might be very short, Jared, because no party has committed to reforming joint and several liability. If we're talking about that specifically.
Well, and as we learned in that episode, it's not the silver bullet we think it's going to be.
It's not the silver bullet, but yeah, we still want to see some reference to it,
right?
Or some reference to skyrocketing insurance premiums. I hate to say it, I did not see any mention in it in any platform. I might have to check the Greens because I didn't get a full.
In terms of insurance, the only thing I saw was auto insurance, and I don't know if that will extend to municipalities. Or...
no, I think that's just for personal auto insurance. And the NDP made a big pledge yesterday. Well, see, but this is interesting. So the NDP made a pledge that they would look into how they could reduce car insurance, like for us, I guess,
right.
For a driver individual, not for municipalities. But we're using a public infrastructure model. And we know, like, for example, Manitoba has something like that. I think Quebec has something like that. Maybe there's another way, in how we do things. I don't know how that would be applied to, if there's, we talked about pooling funds for example, if we want to talk about reforming joint several liability, if there's a fund that all municipalities can pool, resources into to kind of, for catastrophic loss, if we want to reform joint and several liability, that's kind of along the lines of a public system. Like, it's not obviously not the same thing, but
right.
If we're talking about shifting the way we think about it in terms of innovative solutions, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's the start of how we can kind of think about it. But no specific mention from any party. And I'll say this, I'll give the Conservatives credit here. When they were first elected, they pledged they were going to do it, and they quickly realized that it is really hard to reform it. Like, it is not easy. We wish that they could have found a way to do it, and we'll be there to support them or any other party that wants to kind of find a way to reform it, even if it's not the silver bullet, even if it's not the Coors Light of solutions.
Hey, they don't pay us.
Yeah, it's true. So like it's unfortunately in that sense. The other thing that was mentioned in terms of rising insurance premiums was cybersecurity.
Right.
Cybersecurity, we mentioned that at our conference quite a bit. That we had almost like a stream about that and smart city solutions and all that. We had one specific session which actually dealt with municipal cybersecurity. Unfortunately, I don't see anything about cybersecurity. Actually, the Liberals, they mentioned it 4 times. That's more so, I think, for businesses. They want to invest in e-commerce, cybersecurity, and innovation. So, hey, special mention, because anything that you do for businesses in this kind of sense can be, applied. But they want to prevent data breaches by promoting affordable cybersecurity. Right. So that's a nice pledge. And they want to reduce the risks to online transactions by promoting. Okay, that's the same thing. So, yeah, okay. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't really look at that until this moment.
Yeah. And
it's there. So cybersecurity, that's good on the Liberals for that. Let's see. Is that in the budget anywhere? Not in the budget anywhere. Okay. So special mention to the Liberals for talking about cybersecurity, because that can help. That could help reduce one of the upward pressures on rising costs.
Right. And I mean, the only other thing I can see in terms of insurance is the automobile insurance from the Conservatives, creating more choice and cracking down on fraud. I don't know if that's going to funnel downwards or I guess upwards to municipalities.
Right.
In terms of if they can make different choices in their packages and reduce their rates. And then they mentioned enhancing fairness but I mean, this is all automobile specifically for just everyday people. I don't know if this is going to spill over into municipalities and help them. Hopefully it does. I mean, if they lower insurance rates for everyday people, perhaps it'll make it a little bit easier for insurance companies to insure municipalities.
Yeah, I guess depending on how they try to achieve that. That's yeah, you might be right, Jared. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. That's not an area of my expertise per se, like the auto insurance side of things.
Right.
I just thought the NDP pledge was interesting because they're looking to fundamentally change it, because we know, like, for example, if we go back a few years, Kathleen Wynne, when she was premier, she pledged to reduce auto insurance. I think it was by 15% when she was premier. I don't think that was achieved. But I don't think there was like a rethinking of the entire kind of industry.
Right.
Moving to a public insurance model is I'm not saying it's the right or the wrong way, but that's like a completely different approach to it. So if they're looking to change, what's the word I'm looking for here? If they're interested in doing it for auto insurance, they might be interested in doing it. They could reapply it. They can apply that approach or to the municipal side of things. I don't know. It's not in there. I'm not putting words in Andrew Horvath's mouth either. But that's something that we could kind of talk about if that ever arose. Right. Yeah.
So in terms of insurance, we've pretty much covered it.
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, usually that's a short conversation because there's not a whole lot you can do. But
I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is. But
so with that, we can move on to the trusted partner for the future.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I kind of touched on this already in a bunch of other priorities. But like, so for example, I'll start off here. I mentioned that the current government, Premier Ford, Minister Clark, they've been pretty good. They've been pretty trusted partners for municipalities. I mean, it started off a little bit rocky, I'm not going to lie, but I'll give them credit for pivoting and switching up their tone, because at first, with Toronto and cutting down the that was, we don't like that by all means. But for example, during COVID, like I mentioned, they helped municipalities with their budgets.
Right.
Municipalities, especially those with bigger transit systems, they were not getting any revenues, and transit's an essential service that you can't just stop. You can reduce, but you can't stop it.
Right, exactly. People need to get around.
Yeah, so they came back. It was multi-year. It was over, I think, even coming into the third year. They've been there to kind of help cover those shortfalls, which obviously are not the municipalities. There's nothing they really could have done about that to stop that. So that's the kind of partnership that we wanted to see. The Conservatives, I'll just say this about the Conservatives again. They had very big ambitions with to reform housing and how housing is built and whatnot. And there were some pretty bold proposals in that housing strategy that was put together. And I think that they were looking to kind of to do that. Unfortunately, municipalities pushed back really hard on some of those.
Right.
And again, whether I'm not here, housing advocates would probably say that was the wrong thing to do. But what I'm trying to say is municipalities pushed back hard and the province listened. And as a municipal organization or municipal association, that's what you want to see, because it means that they're listening to the sector, to the people who are dealing with this stuff day to day on the ground. Again, whether that was the right decision or not in terms of increasing housing supply, that's another conversation. But so I will say that I just want to give special an honorable mention here to the current government, Minister Clark, who spoke at a conference, by the way,
right.
For doing that. Yeah.
To move on from the Conservatives, a big shout out to the NDP, because in their platform they specifically have a section about partnering with municipalities, new partners for cities and towns, page 89 in the PDF. 87.
Yeah. Yep.
They want to reform the Land Tribunals, Bill 121 for the Municipal Representation Protection Act, and strengthen municipal decision-making with the commitments that they mentioned. New ways to strengthen municipal decision-making, including city charters, and recognizing and support municipal government's legitimate powers.
Right. Yeah. And there you go. And that's exactly kind of what you want to see. And I think that's kind of like a little bit of a reaction to what the current government had done at the very beginning of their term with meddling in the Toronto.
Well, they mentioned the Liberals and the Conservatives in that, but I'm not going to bring that up. You can read that for yourself.
Yes.
It was not. Anyway.
Yeah. So yes. Anyways. But yeah. So it is, and that's kind of that's exactly what we want to see, is like a commitment to work. with municipalities. And I think we mentioned this already, but in terms of municipal revenue tools, did we mention this in the start? I can't remember now.
No, I was going to bring that up at the start, but I figured since we're making our way through the priorities,
yes, this could, So okay, so while what was I going to say?
Well, I'll let you think about your thought for a second there, but to preface that, in the North Bay election debate that just happened a couple of days ago, that was one of the first questions, was revenue tools for municipalities.
Yes.
They got talking about Toronto's revenue tools, and we've been advocating for this for a while.
Yep.
But they got talking a lot about expanding those
to the rest of the province,
all the
other municipalities, essentially. So essentially, they're essentially expanding the provisions in the City of Toronto Act to the Municipal Act.
Yeah.
So I mean, all the other municipalities have them. It's interesting. I think what we learned in the debate was that the Green Party and the Liberal Party are in favor of that. Now, I didn't see that in the Liberal platform.
The Liberals, I'm looking. I've got a Globe and Mail article here about that. I'll put it on the notes.
The platform was released ahead of that debate, but so I don't know if this is something that they added after. But
well, I mean, like you said, Greens 100%. Municipalities the same power. They'd update the property tax system. Del Duca says that the government would have a conversation with municipalities and federal government about the funding. Ford knocked it away, saying he would never support raising taxes.
Right.
And Andrea Horvath says that she would upload some municipal costs to the province, which is probably where I read about uploading costs.
Yeah, so. and like we said, the Liberals had mentioned that with roads and some of the roads and bridges. So
right.
It's good to we're happy with uploading. As long as municipalities agree to it, not unilaterally uploading, but
exactly.
Yeah.
They've got to have control over what gets uploaded and what doesn't, because I mean, if it's unilateral, they lose control of their municipalities in certain instances.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, I just wanted to again mention the Green Party here because I do have their platform open as well. It says specifically grant municipalities autonomy to implement revenue tools to fund critical infrastructure needs and services, and then provide financial support for municipalities to bolster local infrastructure by provincially funding 50% of shelter and community housing costs, while allowing municipalities to maintain management control. That's the kind of uploading I like to see. And then restoring the 50% provincial cost share for transit operations, which is the NDP also pledged that. We mentioned that.
Right.
But they also want to increase collaboration and consultation between municipalities and the province. So, and then also assessing the use of city charters, which the NDP, the NDP had also mentioned. So I like that they have all those mentions in there because it's very important stuff and very important to have that partner. So I feel like there was something else I was going to mention here, but sorry if you have something to say, Jared. Go ahead.
No, in terms of partnership, that's about it. The main platform I saw that mentioned specific partnership was the NDP. Again, every party to some level has been a great partner with Good Roads. We've had excellent conversations and moved forward on a lot of subjects with them. So,
I agree.
Unless you have anything else to add to that.
No, it's just I did see a couple of mentions. I saw this in the NDP platform and the Liberal platform about better engaging local communities on transit projects, especially with a specific reference to Metrolinx. There's a lot of, I don't know how to say this politely or diplomatically, but a lot of with Metrolinx, a lot of times there's a code of silence kind of and then a decision is just there, and people are left wondering like, what the heck happened? So both parties, the Liberals and the NDP, have pledged to kind of make it more transparent and provide more community benefits with Metrolinx projects. So that's I like to see that. I don't know how that's achieved, but I do like to see that. I think that's the last thing I wanted to kind of mention in terms of the partnership.
So those go through our priorities pretty in depth, actually. There's a lot there, and this episode's going to be a lot longer than the federal government one was. We're already, what are we at, an hour now? Hour and 17 minutes. So.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we should probably wrap this up then, Jared.
Well, I mean, I just want to take a few minutes to touch on some little things that we may have missed or we may have not touched on while we were going through there. High-speed internet for rural Ontario. Liberals, PCs specifically have that in their platforms.
Yeah.
Page 44 for the PCs, 78 for the Liberals.
Yeah.
I feel like every party's promised this every year. And
it's just such a big thing. I don't think
it is a big project. But I mean, at some point you've got to get on. You've got to get on that. People need that, especially with the pandemic. Board member Kelly Elliott, I remember hearing anecdotes from her about having to drive to the public library and use their Wi-Fi because their internet is horrible.
Again, I'll give credit to the current government. They've very much prioritized this.
Yeah.
Minister Clark and his team, Minister Surma as well. They've been really doing a lot of the heavy lifting or trying to get a regime in place. They passed, I think, 2 or 3 bills, and then the latest one just passed a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, to kind of really get this going. So,
and the thing
there is some. I don't want to say it's like there was some municipal pushback, and I think we might be hearing about more of that to come because. But you have to kind of prioritize it. And I'll give them that. They have prioritized it. They put their money where their mouth is. They want to have it by 2025 through everywhere in the province.
So that the Liberals want 2025.
Well, the Conservatives have been talking about that for years now. So,
but I mean, and I'm
in multiple budgets.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not dumping on the current government. I'm not dumping on any levels of government because a lot of this has to do with our telecom providers as it is now. I mean, I know they're probably working hard to get stuff out there. Getting infrastructure out to these rural places is a pain. I mean, repeaters and stuff like that to get high-speed internet out to these remote locations is very difficult. And we really didn't see a lot of uptake until Starlink came out from Elon Musk.
So maybe we should just have a Starlink subsidy program and not have to build any infrastructure.
Well, I mean, that can only go so far. I don't want to.
I'm just.
There's a whole other. We're not going to get into that, but
yes.
I don't want to dump entirely on the provincial government for that. That's a lot of work.
Who's dumping on them, Jared? I wasn't. So
nobody. But I'm saying
really this was what you were thinking.
Don't get angry at the government because
it takes time. It takes time.
We have telecoms they've got to work with, and they've got to schedule.
And they have to work with municipalities as well.
Exactly.
Right? So when the most recent one, there was like they're trying to essentially an application goes forward, and they set strict deadlines on when a municipality has to approve it by, which. Again, some of our members are telling us like they're pushing back on this, because sometimes it's a little bit unrealistic or it's very tough to meet those deadlines. But on the flip side, we have to kind of get this done as quickly as possible. So this is where we need to have a partner. You have to work together. It's like, okay, the intention is there, and we want that to be built. But at the same time, like listen to municipalities. Maybe there's no capacity. Maybe the telecoms aren't working. They're not doing the right job there.
Right.
Let's dump on the telecoms. They're not. I'm just joking. Unless they want to sponsor.
Well, we've had.
No, I'm just joking. Yeah. Let's not dump on anybody. We're a positive podcast here.
So we'll move on from there. Just saying that is a priority. Yeah. The Liberals, the PCs have it in their platforms.
Yeah.
It is a difficult project.
Yes.
But the province is working on it, and they've got a date in there. That's like 2025.
Yeah.
That's 3 years away. If it doesn't happen by then crap on them.
Okay. But in terms of just random anecdotes or things that I also liked in there, in the Liberal platform, they said they want to work closely with municipalities and Indigenous communities to protect and restore Ontario's rivers, lakes, wetlands, watersheds, but specifically reduce pollution in Lake Simcoe and the Great Lakes, including lowering road salt runoff, which is harming aquatic ecosystems. So that's, for us, smart about salt, all that stuff. We've been talking about that for years. I love to see that in a platform. In some instances, you're seeing salt water creatures in fresh water because there's so much road salt. It damages crops for farmers, and it gets into watersheds. I'm very much in support of this. Like, if we can help, if you're listening, if you get elected, we want to be a part of that as well.
Yeah,
it's a very specific mention. I don't think I saw it anywhere else. So, maybe the Green Party would have something about that as well. But I didn't have a chance to look. No, but yeah.
I have 2 other small little points to bring up, but salt is definitely a big deal, and I know with the minimum maintenance standards, salt is included in there. How much you have to salt, and so on and so forth. I'm hearing a lot of the private companies are the main reason for
but this also goes back to joint several liability, or not even just joint several, but insurance and liability issues. Because if someone slips and falls. know,
exactly.
The premiums, half these companies can't even get insurance coverage anymore.
Right.
Not half, but you know what I mean, like a bunch of them. It's an issue. So
the only other thing, well, I've got two things left. One's going to be an elephant in the room. The other one, the Canadian Infrastructure Program, I believe the PCs mentioned $30 billion.
Canadian Infrastructure, sorry, which one's that?
Page 89. Where was that?
So you talk about the
in the budget.
In the budget, okay.
Page 89.
But like the Build Canada, is that what you mean?
Let me see what exactly
IPIC? Oh, infrastructure or...
That was 88. There's 89. Ontario Community Infrastructure. We mentioned that. Yeah, OSIF, yeah. Okay, that's probably... Oh, investing in the Canadian Infrastructure Program was probably what I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
$30 billion combined federally, provincial and private.
Yeah, the IPIC.
Over 10 years, yeah. So...
Yeah, what about that?
We mentioned the OSIF. We didn't mention the ISIF.
Invest in Canada. ICIP, not IPIC.
ISIP.
ISIP. Yes. Yeah, that's a big collab between the federal government and the provincial governments. And that was after Justin Trudeau was first elected. Started in 2015.
You're right.
I think, or 20. Yeah, it was early on. And then by the time it actually got rolled out, but it was it's over a decade. So but provinces had to kind of essentially partner and put money in there as well. So.
Yeah, you mentioned OSIF at the top of the program, and I went back and I looked, and the Canadian infrastructure. I just wanted to make sure that was mentioned as well, because that'll be helpful to municipalities. And then I guess the elephant in the room. Being the 413.
I knew you were going to say it.
That's that seems to be quite a...
I was trying not to mention this, Jared.
Well, I mean, it seems to be quite a hinge, with three of the parties mentioning to scrap it, and the Conservatives...
Right, they want to go full
force on it. We've had an episode about it.
Yep.
Take a listen about our thoughts and feelings. But that's very much where the... different political parties stand. We've got 3 nay, 1 yay.
Right. And a bunch of municipalities along the route saying nay, one saying at least 1 or 2 saying yay.
Yeah.
We've everything we want to say about that, I think we've already said, so I'm not even going to...
that is the elephant in the room. That is the big subject. I think that was a big point in the debate as well. It had nothing to do with Northern Ontario, but I know it was brought up anyway.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So that about covers everything municipal related in these platforms. Do you want to leave it right there for this episode?
Yeah, I think we've covered it with the 5 priorities there. We're going to keep monitoring everything that's being said and done throughout this election, which is next, couple more weeks. We're willing as OGRA Good Roads to work with anyone who's elected that wants to prioritize municipal transportation and infrastructure and tackle some of these long-standing issues with some innovative solutions. I am really looking forward to meeting whoever ends up in these roles that relate to that.
Right.
So,
okay. I just want to remind everybody else, there's a lot more in these party platforms. I'll be linking them all in the description below, YouTube, or if we're on Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. Check them out for yourself. See which party aligns with your values. Definitely do your research. Check it out. Moving off of that, I also want to say that Good Roads board member and friend and past guest of the Good Roads podcast, Cheryl Fort, she's moving up in the political world this year and running for a spot as an MPP. So we just want to wish her good luck there. Cheryl, we know you can do it. You have anything to say to that, Thomas?
Well, I don't want to delve into any specific...
No, I left that purposely vague, but good luck to her.
Yes. Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Once again, check out the Good Roads Fall lineup of courses at ogra.org, including the Gravel Roads Workshop, which is a much needed and under-recognized aspect of municipal infrastructure. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and now we've got an Instagram account.
We're finally on the gram?
We're on the gram.
Wow, all the millennials will be pretty pumped about this, myself included.
Yeah, so that's all for up-to-date information on everything happening at Good Roads.
When do we get on TikTok, Jared?
We had a discussion about that the other day. I'm not sure I want to do that. I'm not good at the floss. And I'm probably dating myself now just horribly by saying that. So yeah, I spent a bit of time at Guelph Road School last week, and I posted some pics on the Instagram account. So check it out. You can get a feel for what goes on there. It was a really interesting time, and something I recommend to anybody in the municipal sphere. There's truly something for everyone who works in a municipality, and not just in Ontario either. And again, you're never too old to learn something new. If you've stopped learning, then, well, you can't stop learning. There's always something new. So if you're watching this on YouTube, give the video a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe, because it's not just the podcast that goes up here. We offer tons of great content to help you run your municipality as efficiently as possible. Leave us a comment. Give us your feedback. We love to hear from you. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. Now that things have calmed down a bit around here, we'll be dropping podcasts a little bit more regularly, so keep an eye out for that. But until the next one, everybody, take it easy.